You're listening to the Forbidden Brazilian Portuguese podcast, episode number 3. Olá pessoal, Fernando here. Welcome to episode 3 of Forbidden Brazilian Portuguese. Today the format is going to be a little bit different. I decided to invite a member of the FWBP Academy on the show who would be willing to put their knowledge of Brazilian Portuguese bad words to the test by taking part in a fun quiz. So today, as my first guest, I have Weronika Lisek, who first fell in love with Brazilian Portuguese when she lived in Dublin, Ireland, where she met and made friends with a group of Brazilians. Before we welcome Weronika though, a quick warning. As you know, this show is about the words and expressions that you won't find in conventional course books. So if you disapprove of bad language, this show is not for you. But if you, like me, think that swearing and taboo words are also an important part of language, welcome. And with that out of the way, let's welcome Weronika. Weronika, thank you very much for joining me on the show and also for being my very first guest.
Oh, you're welcome.
Weronika, before we start the quiz, could you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from and where you live at the moment?
Sure. So I'm from Poland, but at the moment I'm living in Argentina, in Buenos Aires.
Okay, and what do you do in Buenos Aires?
I'm an English teacher.
And could you tell us a little bit about how long you've been studying Brazilian Portuguese and why you started learning the language?
I think I started learning Brazilian Portuguese around 5 years ago when I lived in Dublin. I started because I had many friends from Brazil who lived there, because there's a huge Brazilian community. Mm-hmm. And I just simply wanted to be able to communicate with them. And besides, I think that Brazilian Portuguese, it's one of the most beautiful languages in the world. Cool.
And did you start learning by yourself, or did you do sort of a formal course?
No, I have never done any course. I just started learning on my own. So first I started with just some simple vocabulary and grammar. And of course I listened to Brazilian music. I started watching some Brazilian movies, and that was it.
And did you get to practice your Portuguese a lot with your Brazilian friends in Dublin?
Yes, I tried, and also when I was traveling to Portugal or to Brazil, I also tried to speak Portuguese all the time.
And how many times have you been to Brazil before?
Twice. I've been to São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and in a few cities on the northeast of Brazil.
Cool. And in terms of swear words and taboo words, did your Brazilian friends in Dublin teach you a lot of these words?
A few, yes, and mostly I just heard them using them in practice, so this is how I learned.
And then you asked them to explain them to you, or did you look them up? How did you learn them?
Sometimes they had to explain it to me because I try to translate it, but it's not always the same when you translate it from one language to another. Sometimes it's just, it doesn't have the same meaning.
Cool. So are you ready for the quiz?
I'm ready. Let's start.
Okay, excellent. Muito bem, vamos começar então. So, number 1, what is the verb in Portuguese that means to take a shit? A, mijar. B, arrotar. C, cagar. D, peidar. C, cagar.
Cagar.
Very good. Yeah. Cagar comes from the Latin cacare, which means to defecate.
Good to know.
Cool. So number 2, how do children normally say to have a poo? A, fazer xixi. B, fazer cocô. C, soltar pum. D, fazer pipi.
B, Fazer cocô.
Muito bem, ótimo. Obviously, it's not something they would say in front of strangers, but it's something you could say with family and friends and
Sure.
not as offensive or strong. Right, so number 3, which of these is a slang for male homosexual? A, sapatão. B, vaca. C, bundão. D, viado.
This one a little bit more difficult for May homosexual. Could you repeat the answers for me, please?
A, sapatão. B, vaca. C, bundão. D, viado.
I would vote for C.
C, bundão. No. It's not that. It's D, viado.
Viado. I heard another word, but that's why I was thinking about another word.
I think maybe you're thinking of bicha.
Exactly. I was thinking about the bicha.
Yeah, bicha is another slang for male homosexual.
Okay.
So then A, sapatão is a slang, but for female homosexuals, so for lesbians. Yeah.
Okay.
Which literally means big shoe.
Sí.
Yeah. And vaca is cow.
Yes.
Right. Muito bem. So let's move on to number 4. A common insult, the equivalent of up yours, is A, vai tomar no joelho. B, vai tomar na cara. C, vai tomar no cu. D, vai tomar no saco.
Agora definitivamente sim, vai tomar no cu.
Ótimo. Muito bem. Vai tomar no cu. So it's very offensive. It's, literally means up your butthole, basically.
Exactly.
Excellent. So number 5, what is the verb that is commonly used to mean to have sex? A, ralar. B, furar. C, ferrar. D, transar.
D, transar.
D, transar. Muito bem. That's a very, very common slang for to have sex. And it's not offensive. It's not the same as saying fuck, or for example. No, it's a lot softer, quite a common way of referring to have sex. So 4 out of 5.
I need to improve.
That's very good. But that's very good anyway. I'm very impressed with your knowledge of forbidden Brazilian Portuguese.
Oh, thank you.
Weronika, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you very much again for being my first guest on the podcast. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigada também.
So that was the first time I had a guest on the show. I do intend to have quizzes quite regularly with members of the FWBP Academy to test their knowledge of bad words. Now let's quickly review some of the words and expressions we saw in the quiz. In the first question, we saw that the Portuguese equivalent of to have a dump or to take a shit is the verb cagar. Quite a vulgar term. It's not something you would say in public, perhaps just among friends and family, but it is considered quite vulgar. The second question was how children say the equivalent of the English to have a poo, and that is fazer cocô. Now, this is definitely more acceptable than cagar, And it's not just children that say it, some adults say this expression as well. It's very much like the English to have a poo. So poo is cocô, and we have the verb here fazer, which means to make, to do. So fazer cocô literally means to make or to do a poo. The third question was a slang for male homosexual, and that is viado. Viado literally means deer, the animal deer, but it's also used as a derogatory slang for homosexual man, making a link with the graceful movements of a deer. There is, however, a second line of thought with regards to the origin of this slang. Some say it's a reduction of the word transviado, which means deviate. So viado is the second half of the word transviado. Another very common slang for gay man is bicha. I do have to mention here that these two words, viado and bicha, are commonly used among gay men or friends as a jokey and even affectionate way. But in most situations, especially among people you don't know, they will be considered highly insulting. In question number 4, we talked about the equivalent of up yours, and that is vai tomar no cu, which is an insult that we actually mentioned in episode 2 when we were talking about the bum, the bunda. Cu means butthole, so this is a bit like up yours, take it up your ass, that sort of thing. So highly offensive as well. And number 5, we saw a slang that means to have sex, transar. It's quite acceptable to use that in colloquial conversation, and it's not considered particularly rude or offensive to say it in most situations. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. The podcast notes are available exclusively to FWBP Academy members. If you'd like to check out all the benefits that members enjoy, please go to famwithbrazilianportuguese.com/membership. Muito obrigado, até a próxima!